Hi, I'm Chanelle, one of the journalists at Manx Radio. Welcome to the latest edition of Manx Radio Newscast.
My name's PC Louise Kennaugh.
My name's Joanna Whittle. I'm a police early action team officer.
We're talking about antisocial behaviour, and it's something that we've been seeing over the last couple of weeks or months in a few of the communities around the island in terms of kids being antisocial and their antisocial behaviour. PC Lou, can you tell me about that?
Yes, I mean, it's really important to say it's not always just kids. Anyone and everyone can be antisocial, but unfortunately we do see little patterns every so often of our young people perhaps making the wrong decisions or overdoing a choice they may have. There is consequences to them, which I'm sure we'll discuss in a little bit. But yes, the summer holiday so far has actually been really, really nice. Whether it's to do with the weather, which has been atrocious, there's no argument with that one. But our young people have seemed to have been behaving themselves, enjoying themselves. We have had a few of our normal little issues, unfortunately, which is quite a shame, but they are expected. And when they come through, we do get involved and deal with them as soon as we can to try and stop them and educate them.
Now, when you say your normal issues, what are some of those?
Okay, so what we've had, I mean, it's an interesting summer in so much as we've got the Grand Prix over. Now, we always have some things associated with the Grand Prix because we get visitors and young people are curious by their nature. We've had a couple of instances just lately this past few days where they've been at the grandstand a little bit rude, shall we say, to some people, swearing and just messing about and overdoing things, shall we say. Now, this lets us down as an island a little bit. I appreciate the weather might be making them want to do things a bit silly or whatever it is, but they need to make some better choices at the minute. We've also had some people going in disused buildings. Obviously, the dangers with that, we can't overemphasise. And again, it's curiosity, but that curiosity can cause harm and also can cause them to commit offences. And a strange one we've had, I'll add this one now, we have had young people walking on our train tracks. Now, I appreciate we don't have the fast speed trains like the UK. However, there is actual offences under the Transport Act for endangering yourselves or others on train tracks. This needs to stop because although they may think the trains are going slow, there is dangers inherent within them. So we need to stop the trespassing on the phone line, the train lines if possible. And one last one, Chanelle, unfortunately, I do have to emphasise it, is we've had a lot of knock door run. The kids call it ding dong ditch, where, I mean, I'm sure everyone knows and a lot of comments are made on our social media about it's fun, it's just a game, leave them to it. It's not just a game, it may be fun, but we don't know who's behind the door. It can lead to people getting injured, people hurt emotionally, physically. It's scary when someone knocks on your door and you don't expect it, you don't know who's there. So we need young people to stop it. We go into schools and we educate them, we tell them that it's not funny, it's not fun. We've gone over and over it again, and I hope that the public don't jump on and make the comments like it's fun, we all did it, leave them alone. It needs to stop. We can't do things like that.
Now, if I can ask PC Lou, how do these ideas originate, or where do they originate from? Is it from, your TikTok trends, your ding dong ditch, you're walking on the railway? And in terms of walking on the railway, have the police managed to get any of those that have been on the caught on the railway?
Yeah, I think it comes through. So like I just kind of mentioned a little bit there, I think things come through from the older days, shall we say. So my generation, because obviously I'm old and before, I think all these fun games, they just carry on. But circumstance in society changes where they can't go on anymore like that. TikTok, yeah, all your social media, all these little dares, challenges, trends, they come out and people think, well, I'll try that. It's your peer pressure. It's whatever excuse or reason. However, we need to see that behind them, it is antisocial behaviour and people can be harmed from them. The railway lines, yeah, we have got, let me say, I think we believe we know who it was involved in and they're being dealt with. But we just need that one to stop as well, because we want people just to think. I think a lot of antisocial behaviour and the lower end of the stuff is if people just sat back for a second and thought, actually, what am I doing? Can it cause harm? They probably wouldn't make that choice. It's just about making good choices for everybody.
So, Joe, I understand you deal a lot with adolescent kids, if I can say. What have you noticed? Is there any trends, or what have you noticed in your work?
It's a really difficult one to answer because there's so many possible answers to that question. Without getting horribly political, we need a lot more support on the island for the mental health of our young people. And we also need a lot more help in the provision of alternate academic outlets for young people who don't fit the standard norm of traditional schooling. I think those young people existed when I was at school, and that is a long, long time ago, but somehow they were more fitted into the mainstream. Today we've got a lot of school refusers, and they're not given anything else. The fact that we've got children that perhaps only have a requirement of 1 or 2 hours a week at school gives them a huge amount of time to get involved in other things. And that often starts off at antisocial behaviour. So exactly as PC Lewis said, a bit of knock-a-door run, walking on train tracks, shouting, swearing, effing and jeffing at people. If you're comparing it to the worst crimes that you can think of, these are minor matters. But if you don't communicate to a child or a young person that this isn't appropriate behaviour in the community, you're setting them up to understand that that's acceptable behaviour going forwards. Without wanting to swear on radio, but it's a good example is there are various swear words that young people will see older adults use, not as a swear. So I'm not swearing at you. I'm using that word as part of my sentence. It's the same thing. It's that not understanding that there is a boundary to when you use that language or when you use that behaviour. A typical one could be young people come out of school, or, all released, all the energy. They're at the bus stop, they're messing about, they might take one another's school bags, they're throwing them about. There'll just be raised voices. There might not even be poor language, but raised voices. If you are an older person, particularly, a pensioner, and you're at the bus stop because you missed the bus before and you're sitting there and suddenly 30 kids are surrounding you, and much as they all like to be individual, they're all wearing hoodies and they're all wearing the same outfit. That's really intimidating. But when you speak to those children one-on-one and say, how would you feel if that was your nana, if that was your gramps? They're horrified. I'd have a go at anyone who upset my grandma. You've just upset somebody else's grandma. So we literally pick up anything and everything from the lowest level antisocial behaviour up to matters prior to going to the Isle of Man courts.
Now, kids as young as what age? Oh, I'm phrasing this wrong. Sorry. I'm trying to get. I'm just trying to think. What is the youngest child that you've seen or that you're seeing at the moment?
So the age of criminal responsibility is 10. So anything that happens below 10, we don't get involved formally. We have a couple of times become involved informally if a parent has had concerns around their child's behaviour, normally linked to mental health issues, to try and give them a little bit more of a word than mum and dad. But our remit is from the age of criminality, so that's 10 upwards. The majority of my customers, for want of a better expression, sit between the 13 and 15. You do get some young ones come through. That's far more for antisocial behaviour. That's the going into abandoned buildings. That's throwing stones at the windows of abandoned buildings. Well, nobody lives there. It's not damaging anybody. Or the ones that perhaps take a bar of chocolate from Tesco's or one of the other shops because they don't see a direct victim there. You often find if you talk to somebody about shop theft, it's okay to shop theft from Tesco's, but you wouldn't do it from the corner shop from round the corner from where you live, because you know Mrs. Jones that runs that shop, that would be stealing from Mrs. Jones. But stealing from Tesco's, well, they've got millions and billions of pounds, so they're not going to care. And it's the education process that doesn't matter where you're stealing it from, theft is theft. And I think it's quite important to have the opportunity today to talk to you about the Police Early Action Team, because we often see feedback on social media in particular that the police don't do anything. trust me, we work incredibly hard with the young people that do come to police attention, whether that's for willful criminal behaviour or thoughtless antisocial behaviour. But these are children and they are entitled to their anonymity. So we don't publish details of children aged 13 or 14 or even 16. And I think sometimes that means the Manx public think we're not doing anything. We are. We will work with young people, specific programmes to address shop theft. Occasionally we go through little periods of time where young people set fires. We have a fire setters programme that we've developed in conjunction with leading officer Dallimore at the Isle of Man Fire and Rescue Service. We have just trialled a new initiative at the Isle of Man prison with the governor's approval up at the prison for a young person that we genuinely feel is at serious risk of ending up in prison if he doesn't make some changes to his lifestyle. But it's not all that heavy. Some of it is, in some ways, quite fun. But all of it is about safeguarding our young people. It's about understanding why they're doing what they're doing. So we mentioned a bit earlier in conversation, shop theft, a need shop theft and a want shop theft. If a child is coming to attention regularly because they are stealing food, chances are there is a bigger picture behind that. When I say stealing food, I'm talking about sandwiches and things, not Mars bars and cans of energy drink. What's going on at home? Have mum and dad split up? Have they lost the income earner? Do they need help and support with the food bank, etc., etc.? Do they need help financing school meals? These kind of things, as opposed perhaps to a couple of young girls that might go into Boots and steal false eyelashes and acrylic nails, etc. In their view, that might be a need. I need it, but it's not the same. There's a difference. So it's very much what we do is very much about trying to protect our young people, both in terms of criminality, but also is there something else going on in their lives that is causing the behaviour that we're seeing to happen.
Right. Now, in your want theft, how do you deal with kids then that's stealing like your eyeliner from Boots?
Yeah. So we go through any meeting that we have with a child, the first meeting is always with a parent because we need them to know that they're coming into a safe environment. And we're now based at Murray House in Douglas, and we have a therapeutic meeting room for seeing young people. So it's not like coming into a formal police station. It's colourful, it's bright, we've got bean bags, we've got sofas, we've got the ability to show videos, etc., to make it informal, to make it a comfortable environment. That doesn't mean that a child isn't going to get an appropriate reprimand for what they've done, but it's the explanation of, do you actually know what theft is? Do you know what the criminal definition is? And then looking at the impact of that on, well, who is the victim? And we actually do a programme whereby I track it back and I am the victim of your shop theft. So Chanelle, if you go in today and you steal an eyeliner from Boots, I am at the very end of your list of victims, because ultimately, particularly the bigger stores like Boots, Marx's, any of the high street stores from England, they have those security measures in place, and those security measures aren't for free. So if you've got that repeated amount of money, then that has to come from somewhere. And eventually that means that the prices go up. And it works really well when you talk to young people about, actually, when your mum goes shopping in Tesco's and her bread and her milk are more expensive, that means she hasn't got money for your Haribos this week. And that's because the store have put prices up to help cover their losses. It's a very simplified way of doing it, and I appreciate there'll be people in retail and others who are like, well, it doesn't quite work like that. But the reality is, for most retailers, and in a previous life I worked for a very large retailer, as a manager, you are responsible for the stock that comes into your store until it goes through the tills. So if the value of the stock in your store is £10,000 and I've got children who are stealing £5 worth at a time, they need to understand that actually the store manager and the staff are being looked at for what's going on. And then, as I say, the security costs, etc. It's not a massive telling off when, especially for a first time, you're not, putting somebody against the wall and screaming at them. But it's a mix of education and understanding and thinking about the wider impact. What's the consequences of what you've done on yourself, on your family, on the shop? What could that lead to? If you don't stop doing that, what happens if actually you decide you're going to do it again? Normally, there's a little joke because if you've been caught first time, shop theft probably isn't going to be your ideal career because you're obviously not very good at it. But so it's not about being mean. It is about education. It is about safeguarding. And the Peat team sit as part of the multi-agency support hub in Murray House, which means we work very closely and with far less barriers with our colleagues in health and our colleagues in Manx care, which means when we do identify a vulnerable child or family, we can swing into action as a group, as a team, far more quickly than we've ever done before. And the breaking down of those barriers and that cross-functional working is having a really positive impact on our young people and the most vulnerable people in our society.
How many young people are you working with at the moment? Or is the organisation working with at the moment?
I think we've probably got about 30 live cases on the board at the moment. But that's a slightly skewed figure because we're finding there is an increase in the number of young people at the moment who are coming to us who have more complex needs. So perhaps where you would have had one meeting with a child, and for a lot of them, one meeting for one event is sufficient. We've got a number at the moment who are ongoing, who we're seeing weekly or bi-weekly, and we're doing an extended programme of work with them to really try and get into these young people the lessons that we're trying to teach them, to make sure that things are correct in terms of their education. Do the parents need help? We've mentioned financial, we've mentioned food bank. Is there a health issue? Are they getting the right support from CAMS or from their GP? Even the basics. If a child's got toothache, have they got access to a dentist? So it's helping as across the board as we can. But yeah, it's about 30 at the moment. I would say probably 15 brand new young people who've yet to meet either myself or one of the other members of the team, and about 15 who are ongoing, who either myself or one of my colleagues are seeing on a regular basis to try and work through some more complex issues.
If I can take you back to where you spoke about the fire program, I know earlier in the year we did have quite a few incidents where we heard of places being set on fire, set alight. Did that stem from, did those incidents raise concerns?
They do, because if you look at the wider information around people that set fires, that can be an early indication of a much more serious set of circumstances that somebody can progress to in terms of their mental health, in terms of whether somebody has a fixation with fire, etc. Most of our youngsters are silly with fire. I'm not going to go into specific details because I don't want to encourage anybody, but most of them are not willful attempts to burn down a house or to set fire to a building with people or animals in it. Most of them are thoughtless. Oh, I wonder what would happen if. As I said earlier, we have a bespoke programme that we've created with the fire service, particularly considering what the role of the fire service is on the Isle of Man, because it's very different to my native South London, which is probably coming across in my accent. If you have a big fire in London or Manchester or Liverpool, if it's that big, you can call up and you can get other fire brigades from other jurisdictions to come across. If we have to get a fire engines, coming across, let's be honest, whatever it is burnt down. By the time it gets here on the Manxman or the Ben, we're too late. So it's very much about getting a child to think about, how many fire engines do you think we've got on the Isle of Man? And they'll go, 40. Not so much. How many fire stations have we got? 27. not so much. And then, it's very simple, and it works very well with the younger children, and it tends to be the younger children who set the fires. We have a map of the island, and we have some little fire engines, and we have some little fire stations. Put them where the fire stations are. Put your fire engines where you think they are. Okay, so we've done that. Right, you and your friends set a fire here. There are 2 fire engines available, but one of them's actually out of service because they're doing a school visit. So there's only 1 fire engine. And this fire engine is now going to go and deal with the fire that you and your friends have set. But your mum is just phoning the fire brigade because the chip pan is on fire. That dates me. That dates me hugely. But, there's a fire that is happening at the house. Well, there isn't a fire engine immediately to send to your house now because those firemen are dealing with your silly fire. So now there's going to be a delay in getting to your home to deal with that fire because we've got to get a fire engine from somewhere else. And you do see a light bulb moment with most of those young people. They go, oh, wow. Oh, so actually my family, my dog, my cat is going to get hurt because of that. And that's really impactful. Touch wood, we haven't had anything related to arson that we haven't been able to manage in that educational way. I think we're incredibly lucky for that. I think there is an element of luck in that, but I don't think we've, as yet, in the time that I've been here, seen anybody who is willfully trying to cause serious damage or loss of life.
If I can ask you and both PC Lou, why do kids go into do antisocial behavior? Is it because it's trending, because they're in a group where they're easily influenced, because it's fun or daring? Any idea what it could be?
If we had the answer to that, we'd be rich women.
Yeah, I think it could be one of any of the things you've mentioned or many other things as well. It's all individual, isn't it? It depends on the time, the place. It is. You can't kind of pinpoint the reasons why or the explanations for it. I think the best thing I've had here, like you asked me to come and talk about antisocial behaviour with the young people, and I say in general, everyone can be antisocial. I think the more important thing, which from listening to Jo is actually what are we doing about it? So we can sit and talk about the kids are doing this, but actually the bigger pieces, that's always going to exist. But we've talked now about what we're doing about it and what society as a whole can do about it, because we're all responsible for it in a way. So to add on to that, we also have a schools team, which has changed slightly. So this school year coming, you've got me and 2 other officers, dedicated officers, going around all the schools on the island, and we deliver individual packages in relation to things like your knock-door and run, your fire, your antisocial behaviour. So we also put that in, and that starts from reception to year 6 and onwards. So I think the more important thing is antisocial behaviour will always exist, but actually it's about what we as a society and Islander do about it, in effect.
So,
I think,
sorry.
I think some of it is boredom. I think it's very often quoted, well, there's nothing to do on the Isle of Man. And I've obviously, having lived in England for a large portion of my career, I find that quite a difficult one to deal with because there is an awful lot here if you go out and look for it. It's not necessarily going to be on your doorstep. But also the reality is if we had the big shopping centres like the Trafford Centre or Meadow Hall, your kids aren't going to have any more money than they've got now. Your parents aren't going to have any more money than they've got now. And the reality is, across, I mean, our cinema here, with respect to them, is expensive enough. But you're going to be looking probably at about £20 a ticket across. So even if we did have the most swept-up multiplex cinema here, I don't know many parents that could afford to send their children to the cinema 4 or 5 nights a week to see different films and then add on the cost of the bits and pieces that go with that kind of a trip. So there is a need, again, to look at what is here and get involved in it. I think the problem area is it becomes the kind of things that we would have done perhaps as older teenagers, where our teenagers are more advanced than we were, is that those things, youth club, when you're 14 and 15, it's not sexy. It's not where you want to go. That's not where the trendy kids are. And that's a bit of an issue. So something for our older children, but also the reality is older children don't want to be organised. We would be, I think, along the lines of sort of Cafe Lair, which has the younger children, but you almost that kind of situation, but for older children, just somewhere where they can go and hang out, because they don't want organised activity. They don't want to be in ping pong competitions. They just want somewhere where they can hang out and just not be at home, not be subject to dad saying, right, you need to load the dishwasher or what have you. But that's hard to find. So it is about making activities. But also, PC Lou commented on the community. Again, referring to social media, there's nothing for the kids to do. If 1 in 10, 1 in 50 of the people that made that comment then put their hand up and said, what can I do in my community for 2 hours a week? Can I run some kind of youth activity? Could I supervise a cycling session to teach our kids cycling proficiency? I think they do still do that in schools, but we are so perfectly placed as a small island. We're not encumbered by some of the red tape and rules and regulations that throttle the life out of some of this across. We can do pretty much as a society within the boundaries of the law what we want to do. And I would implore people that are sort of saying there's nothing for them to do and the police don't do anything. If you're worried about something in your community, stand up and get involved. Come and talk to the police early action team. Come and talk to PC Lou. This is the skill set I've got. Could you use this to help educate children? Could you use this to help occupy some of our children, to help divert them away from the antisocial behaviour that you're on social media complaining about in the first place? That would be... It's a pretty strong message. I seem to have gone a little bit off topic.
No,
but,
you're my hero.
That's the way we make this work, and that's the way that we reduce that concern around antisocial behaviour, and it's the way that we pick up and divert those young people that ultimately, potentially, could end up in a secure children's home, and even worse, on their 18th birthday, get a free trip in a van to Derby. And we're about stopping that.
Oh, yeah. I think my last question would be, I know you gave the figure earlier of 80% success rate.
Yeah.
Would you be comfortable sharing that, and maybe just another message to parents just to say we are doing work behind the scenes?
Absolutely. So if your child comes to police attention for antisocial or lower level criminal behaviour, in the majority of cases you will get a child being referred to the police early action team, and we will work with your child, sometimes just to repeat the message that you've already given as mum and dad. But because you're mum and dad, your teenager is rolling their eyes and going, what do you know? Sometimes it's just a case of having somebody else say it. I think it's really important that our parents and the wider community know that we are working with children, that is available. It is also available through the schools team. So if there is no criminality, but there are concerns about a child's behaviour, that you're worried that maybe they're getting in with the wrong group, that they're perhaps changing in language, changing in attitude, we can take third-party referrals as well. So we can take a referral direct from a parent or via our schools team. And I know the girls in the schools team are going to be heavily promoting that when the schools go back in a couple of weeks' time. But it's, as I've said before, for fear of repeating myself, it's very much about teaching our children right from wrong. We're not fun sponges. We're not trying to take it all away from them. We're just trying to make sure it's appropriate in the right place at the right time. If you want to go and scream and shout on the beach and you're not upsetting anybody, if PC Lou's had a bad day and she's taking Fergus out for a walk and wants to scream at the sea about her bad day, fantastic. But that's an appropriate way of doing it. Bringing Fergus onto the prom and shouting profanities isn't going to work, and that's what we're teaching our young people. It's about the right thing at the right time in the right place, and we just want to grow happy, healthy children on the Isle of Man, and we want them to come to us at that early stage so that we can divert them, because those young people, the parents of the young people that we're working with now, one of those children potentially could be a chief minister, could be an MHK, could be a Manx radio presenter. We want those children to be able to live the best lives that they are possibly able to do. And that starts with sometimes us telling them off and showing them the right way to go. And that's exactly why we have a police early action team.
Oh, perfect. I think my last question just about your success rate.
Yep.
Yeah. So, so having worked with kids last year, how often do you see reoccurrences happen?
So the figure from somebody that offends once to somebody that offends again drops dramatically. Certainly for the current year, the number of children that came to attention for a second time would be under 100. And then it drops dramatically again. So if you like, some young people need a second bite of the cherry. The figure between those that need to be seen a second time and those that need to be seen a third time, again, drops dramatically. So there is a high success rate. I'm also open to the fact that some people will say, well, maybe they wouldn't have done it anyway. Well, maybe we're just being doubly sure that they wouldn't have done it anyway. But if we're stopping one young person from taking a journey that will ultimately end in the secure children's home or with a significant criminal record that's going to close so many doors for them going forwards, or stopping them ending up in Derby, then if we've saved one, I can go home and I can sleep well at night. And that's why we do what we do. And we need more of that passion and more of that enthusiasm. And as I say, if there are people in the community who think they've got things that they can bring to help divert our young people, Police Early Action Team, first floor, Murray House.
Thank you for making it to the end of the Manx Radio newscast. You are obviously someone with exquisite taste. May I politely suggest you might want to subscribe to this and a wide range of Manx Radio podcasts at your favourite podcast provider so our best bits will magically appear on your smartphone. Thank you.